Anyways, yeah. So no Packy this week, and that's kind of sad. But hopefully he'll be here next week, and then we'll just have to have you back, Jacob, so that Packy's here when you're here,
He'll
and
be stronger next week.
Yeah.
harder,
First
better,
time
faster,
caller, long
stronger.
time listener.
I don't think we've been around long enough. This is number 9. I don't think that counts as being a long time listener, does it? I don't know.
Hey, since the beginning, that counts for something.
Yeah, relatively.
Jacob, Zach, Danny, we got fans.
We have fans. Oh, Danny actually listens. Oh, that's
She
interesting.
does. She doesn't understand a lot, but she listens. She doesn't like the name change.
See, I love the name change, but I guess it's because it's relevant to like past memories
Exactly.
for me. Also, I totally forgot to
Yeah.
mute myself on Audacity when I muted just then to cough, so you're going to have that experience a lot. I'll try to be.
No,
He's
don't
used to
honestly don't
RBS.
worry about it at all. Like it's actually I'd rather you not try and mute it because then you'll forget to unmute it and then I just
True.
won't have audio. And so like I'd rather just balance out or silence the coughs
Yeah, it'll be
than,
okay.
deal with whatever,
All of
right?
my
Like
bodily sounds just on the track. I like it.
It's authentic.
if anything, I would recommend just like muting your overall mic. I don't know. I mean, so I have like a little button I can just press, right? And so that's what I'll normally do is I'll just press the button.
Yeah, I need to get a better mic. Right now, I'm
Anyways,
just on some headphones. So, but yeah. Anyway,
listeners, we are joined by our friend Jacob, who, like he said, like he is familiar with Jetpack Swords. He knows the background
The
of our
lore.
glorious podcast name. And we've only this is only our second guest, but I'm gonna try and do the if a guest is on, I want to let them steer the conversation. So Jacob, what do you want to talk about?
well, first, I have to say, the name change made me very happy when I was listening because it does elicit a lot of good memories of Halo, and I
Mm-hmm.
often like
Mm-hmm.
reminisce with James because I think Halo Reach is like the golden age of like playing Xbox Live with
It's
the
the peak,
homies, and
yeah.
Oh, it definitely is.
yeah, and like I have a very funny memory, Greg, specifically of you. I remember like it was like after school one day, like maybe like a Thursday night, some random day, and I joined an Xbox Live party that had like you and James and a couple other people. And you were like, "Oh, you guys got to check out this map that I made. It's really really cool. It's really interesting. It's really cool. Like, let's try out this custom game mode." And I was like, "Oh hell yeah! Like, let's do it." And so we loaded up, and then the first thing I see, we spawn in. Like, none of us have like weapons. We're all just like standing in a clump, and I'm like, "Wait, what is this? What is this?" And I look up, and you're just like on a floating platform
Okay,
above us.
Okay, so actually, this is a common misconception. I think James or Packy said this too. That's actually not my map. That's actually Max's.
Okay.
That is a
Oh,
Max map.
Hey, you spread it to the
Um,
rest of us though, so you're complicit.
that
well, that was
that
the day I
might be
learned
true. That
what
very
a
well might
poop
be
map
true.
was.
Because I distinctly
But
remember that
that's a
also.
Max map. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I
that was
mean,
the day I
he
learned what a poop map was. And
that's yes,
yeah,
exactly. It was. I think he explicitly referred to it as poop map or
Yes, it was poop
there was
map.
some background that I can't remember, and we'll have to have Max on again and see if he remembers this and what he actually called the map. Because it was literally just like it was everything. It was like rocket launchers, fuel rod cannon, like the
right.
grenade launcher, right? Like it was just you just sit there and you're just getting obliterated.
No, and I miss that that experience. I think like it's natural when you grow up and you get older and everybody starts working and doing all the different things that you do in life. It makes sense that that kind of like big, just massive friends playing together is like less common, but that's probably one of the things that I look back on most fondly.
Agreed.
So yeah,
Well, and
to
so
bring it
if
back,
you
like
if you have been listening, maybe you'll remember. I'm pretty sure at one point we talked about, yeah, like when was the last time you actually did like a big coordinated gaming night with the homies? Actually, not even coordinated, just a big gaming night with the homies, as you said, right? Like, obviously, like you're playing Wrath, Wrath, WoW
yes,
Classic,
oh yeah,
Wrath of the Lich
oh
King,
yeah.
right? Are you raiding in there?
I have not had time to really dig in, and the problem for me with Wrath Classic is I'm on like one of the most heavily populated servers, so I still have the server queue like every time that I want to try to
Oh,
log on, and so It's like a double-edged sword though, because I know, the classic population, like it's pretty high, but I know obviously it's not gonna like stay as high as it is now at the beginning of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
expansion. So for me, it's like a double-edged sword because I don't want to pay for or use the free server transfer to like a lower pop server so I can play, and then have to pay to come back to the server that I actually like
Yeah,
later
because
on.
you
So
don't want
I
to be on the low pop server. You want to be on like
right,
honestly like the middle ground of like it's really populated but you don't have queues to log in is like that's obviously like
yeah,
the golden point.
no,
But so
exactly.
are do you plan on raiding in Wrath Classic?
I would like to. I planned on doing it in TBC, and then I didn't like at all. I did a little
Gotcha.
bit, like I did some of the like early raids, and so I'd like to do it in Wrath, but I'm definitely taking my time, mostly because I haven't had as much time to play recently, and also just because of the queue. So whenever I can get in there, I do a little bit of leveling here and there. So I'm slowly working my way up, but if I can get up there in time, and I still have a couple of friends like you play it, and I have a couple of other friends that play it as well. So if I
Well, so
can,
I
if I
haven't
can get up,
played Classic actually. I haven't played any of the
oh really?
classics. I had no interest in Vanilla or the Burning Crusade because those games are old. And I
Yeah, yeah.
genuinely I loved it, right? Don't get me wrong. Like when I played Vanilla for the first time and when it came out in I think that was middle school for us, like, oh my god, I love that
Mhm.
game. I am fairly confident if I had played Vanilla today, I would have absolutely despised it though, because I think it is just an old game that probably
Oh
has a
yeah,
lot of rough edges.
it is, and like
Um,
it, funny. Like as a sidebar of this is kind of funny. I don't know if you know this, Greg. 'Cause we haven't talked about this like maybe ever since it happened, but you were actually the person that got me into World of Warcraft. We
I
were at
got
like
so
a
many people into
It's
WoW, so
crazy.
that's not surprising.
we
Such
were
a
at
long
like
time
some
ago.
birthday party, and we were doing like playing like Rock Band, doing all the stuff, and then you like logged into your character on the computer in this basement, and you were like, "Dude, look at this," and you just showed it to me, and it was like an eye-opening moment. I could hear like the oh, like holy
Oh my
sound,
god, that's
and like
amazing.
very shortly after that, I downloaded it, and then the addiction began, and here we are today. So,
I mean, same with
so
Packy.
yeah,
I got Packy into it very similarly, right? Like, it's, God, would that have been, that might have been middle school. Actually, that almost certainly would have been middle school,
it
right?
definitely
Because,
was. Yeah,
Yeah, it had
yeah,
to have
yeah,
been
because we
for
went to
sure.
different high
I want to
schools. Yeah,
say
so
we were in seventh grade. So I think at the time I actually didn't play like original vanilla WoW because I jumped
it
on
would
the
have
train.
maybe
I think in
been
the Burning
TBC
Crusade.
at that point. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. No,
but
dude,
yeah.
that's
So
that's amazing. I didn't know that actually. Oh, that's
yeah,
so amazing.
like I have you to thank for this just recurrent addiction. It's like my relationship with that game is interesting because even outside of classic, like I feel like I'll just go through a phase where I have no interest of ever touching it at all, and I'm comfortable with it being just this pleasant thing in my memory, and then something will come out like a new expansion or something, and I'm just like right back in there. The addiction is
Yeah, so
strong,
then so
so
then my follow-up obviously is are you gonna play retail when Dragonflight comes out? And then the then follow-up that's the tieback is so aside from rating and WoW, like yeah, when was the last time you did like a big group act like gaming activity, like the good old days of
yeah.
Jetpack Swords, right?
So okay, so I'll say to your first question, I am cautiously waiting to see how Dragonflight is when it comes out. I would love to go back and play it because retail is where I have my character that I've had since 2007 or whatever. So that's sort of like a special thing to me. I always like progressing that and diving in with that character, but I didn't really play Shadowlands like at all. Like I probably put in like 3 hours of it, and then I got like way off and just didn't have time to play it. And then by the time I had time again, the kind of like community reception had really soured a lot. So I kind of just was like, yeah, whatever. I'll just play classic instead. So
Yeah,
for
the beginning
Dragonflight,
was excellent. I mean, to be fair, everyone loves the beginning of every WoW expansion.
right,
I don't remember anyone complaining about the first 2 weeks of a WoW expansion ever. It's
right,
always
like
it's
the
always
leveling experience
after
was
the
good.
first month is when the bitching starts.
Exactly. So we'll see. I think I'll probably try it out and just see how it goes. Because like you said, like I'll at least enjoy the leveling experience, whatever, and then we'll just see how it goes from there. Like I'm hopeful. I would like the game to be good, but
Yeah.
I think my faith in that is like not as high as it has been in the past. So I'm looking to be pleasantly surprised, but
I have no faith past the first 2 weeks. So like,
correct.
but that first 2 weeks, actually, no. I'll extend that. I have no faith past the first 2 months, but I guarantee those first 2 months are going to be so much fun for me. I'm
Right.
very excited.
Yeah, totally. So to answer your other question about, when was the last time, had a big gaming night? I think James can probably corroborate this. We have medium-sized ones here and there where we play some of our favorites like Phasmophobia. That's a big one.
Oh yeah,
We can usually grab a couple of friends,
Phasma's so good.
or sometimes we'll grab some friends and get into like random stuff. Like we went through a Deep Rock Galactic phase. We went through a
Nice, yeah.
Vermintide 2 phase, stuff like that. But the last time we really had like a big group of people playing stuff together was
like at 6 minimum, I would say. Yeah, like
yeah. That was Valheim for us, I think.
Yep,
That was
that's what
the
I
last time
said
we really
the
had a
other
ton of
the other
people.
day when we were talking about this. Yep.
Yeah, so I set up.
It's hard. It's hard. Like everything you said earlier. Yeah, it's hard for all those reasons. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, tell me about Valheim.
No, you're good. We set up a server on AWS, just like a nice little cloud server, and dove in like one night on a whim, and then it just like absorbed everyone for probably like a month and a half. And honestly, James and I were the least absorbed. We had a lot of other stuff going on at the time, but some of the other people we were playing with, straight up,
no, like Jordy has like 70 some or maybe 100 some hours, and most of it's from that like month that we were playing.
Yeah, and I think that was the most fun part. Like, I love the game. I think it's a great game, and like sometimes I've played it solo, but I don't think anything matches the like experience of just like having all the boys together and like just going through that like addictive phase where everybody wants to be online and play it, and it's kind of one of those like emergent things, which it kind of reminded me of WoW in that way. So
yeah, no, that's nice. The server, I've got to ask, obviously, because obviously we're both software engineers, right? And so you say AWS, and so it always gets me curious. And for those who don't know, AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's just their like cloud platform stuff that most software these days is built on public clouds, whether that be Amazon, Microsoft, or Google. So did you just like spin up a normal VM in EC2 and like run Valheim on it 24/7?
Yeah.
Or like did they have some like better way to do it? Or did you literally just raw VM in the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, I found a nice little like guide around the time that somebody had like kind of gone through the steps. So I wasn't like completely just hashing it together myself. But yeah, it was just like a Ubuntu EC2 instance, and I basically just like set it up to be running 24/7 because, and that was the right choice too, because like I said, people were literally on it 24/7. There was one guy that almost lost his job and his girlfriend because of his emergent addiction to the game. So
oh my god,
yeah.
Which did you get a chance to listen to the one where Max talked about Ark?
I did not yet, but James told me about it. And
it is one is good and genuinely worth the listen to, especially if you're talking about like almost losing a job and a girlfriend
for sure.
over Valheim. You should go listen to Max talk about Ark.
Yeah, Ark is like, James has kept me apprised of like some of our friends that play Ark, and it's like something that I've never like really super delved into, but I can see why it's the kind of thing that people get like super into.
People love it. I mean, like the only, we like kind of start this off with like current events, which, oh, by the way, I don't think I ever like necessarily introed the show. Hello, everyone. This is Jetpack Swords, a casual gaming podcast where we talk about games, gaming, or whatever else catches our attention. My name's Greg. I'm the host, and I'm joined by, as always, James, my co-host.
Hello.
And then this week we have our wonderful friend Jacob as our guest.
Hello, everybody.
Anyways, yeah, exactly. Jacob's great. I'm super happy to have him here, and hopefully he'll return in the future. And obviously, we were talking about a past episode where we had our friend Max on as well. And I was going to say, a lot of times we'll start with current events, and like there actually hasn't been that much interesting. The only of random thing that I saw is the numbers for how much Sony and Microsoft paid to get Ark on their various services.
Man.
Yeah, was it like $3.5 million to get Ark as a PlayStation Plus title?
Oh my
like
gosh.
Holy shit! People love this game. Like people adore this. I mean, it's fucking dinosaurs. Like, I mean,
right.
I get it. Like, But it's just, yeah, I don't really, we're not going to talk about quote unquote current events or whatever. I just, because we are already vaguely, I just thought that was crazy. $3.5 million for a PlayStation Plus title, which, like, you know, I think actually isn't real. I think that's on the high end of those things, right? Like, I know there's some documents
Yeah, for
out there
sure.
about like how much Epic pays for the free games on, Epic Game Store. And I'm sure some of those were, yeah, like in the multiple millions of dollars, but still, I don't know. I just, yeah, people fucking love Ark is what is I think what I was saying. Um,
Yeah, I think
in
like
regards to
my.
go ahead, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I still love the custom server thing. Like we talked about this a little before. Like, I it makes it so nice, right? Like Minecraft has realms, which is just like exactly what you did, but managed
Yeah,
essentially. It's just like it's kind of expensive, and it feels like for what it is. And then like that's why I feel like Packy and I have been playing Grounded, and James joined us for like an hour or two the other day. And Grounded strikes that nice middle ground of like you have a shared save file where it's not like the server's not always running all the time or whatever, right? But like, you know, you can get on, and if no one's playing, you just load the shared save file, and so it's kind of like that nice middle ground. Anyways, you were
yeah. I
saying
kind of wish that middle ground existed more, because that's something that I've
For
always
I
like
sure.
want
wished for.
everything to do
Now,
it. Yeah.
yeah, now that I have like the technical know-how to throw together servers for stuff, it's not as much of a barrier. But like at the same time, having some sort of solution like that's not as costly, where you can just like spin up the game and just dive right in and have the world just spin up when someone's in it, like that seems like the best way to do it. So I haven't
Mhm.
actually tried Grounded out yet. James has been trying to get me on it, so I'll probably download
Super
it here
good.
probably after this podcast tonight. But yeah, I think that's really cool.
Do you remember how much that like Valheim server cost you in AWS? Like I imagine it was probably very, very cheap because like don't they have free tiers obviously? And so like most of it was probably free, and then like probably only had like a couple hours of billing would be my guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I can't remember the exact cost numbers. I think I did spring for a slightly more robust instance just because like when we were first spinning it up, like Valheim was not very optimized at all. So we kind of noticed that without enough like hardware behind it, it was a little jankier. So I just
Hmm.
gave it like a little bit more cushion,
Interesting, yeah.
a little more
Yeah.
power on the server. But I think the game has like been optimized a good bit since then. So
It
we haven't really
runs,
like,
yeah, real smooth, as me and
yeah,
Jordy have been playing lately. So,
which
So
I have
cool.
tried it out on my Steam Deck recently. So that was cool.
oh
But
yeah,
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Are you playing? I forget. So Blizzard, shit, they have Mac OS clients for a fair number of things. Do they have Linux clients for their games? Like, can you play Wrath Classic on your Steam Deck?
So you can play Wrath Classic on your Steam Deck, but it is not like a easy, like official way to do it. I think I can't remember the steps. I haven't done it yet. I've looked it up just like kind of cursorily, but there's a way to do it, but it's not like a just easy official like Linux install. I think you
I
gotta like,
gotcha. Well, because that
yeah,
was
like,
obviously I was pretty sure you're using Steam OS on it, right? Like you haven't put Windows on
yeah,
it or anything, right?
no, yeah, not
Yeah.
at all. Just use the Steam OS and then like boot to the Linux desktop sometimes when I want to do, like file management stuff, or like I have a bunch of emulators set up on it right now, which is pretty cool. One of my favorite
Oh
things
yeah.
about it so far is just like how easy it is to plug up all the emulators. And Steam does a lot to make that easy too. Like they have a lot of good support for that nowadays. But so like I'll boot to the Linux version of the machine to get all that stuff set up. But really, out of the box, the Steam OS is super, super nice. Like it is a really, really smooth and responsive machine. So I've been super happy with it so far. I've had very little time to play games recently, but I've been playing on my Steam Deck quite a bit when I do have time.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm curious. I was playing something on my Switch recently, and I was playing in handheld, and I we're big guys, Jacob. The Switch,
Yeah,
it doesn't do it for me. How does the Steam Deck feel like the physical hardware
the
of it,
physical.
like the
Okay.
ergonomics of it compared to like the Switch?
Well, so yeah, I did a kind of comparison the other day because I've been playing my Steam Deck a lot. Haven't touched my Switch in a while, and so I went and picked up my Switch to move it or something like that. And I was like, oh man, this thing is super light. So in a way, I think there's like a trade off there where like it's nice sometimes to have the Switch because it's like it is more portable. It's a super light little thing that you can just like toss in your bag and you're good to go. I think the
Yeah.
Steam Deck is it's heftier, it's bigger, so it definitely, kind of calls for more care. But in terms of just like how it feels in your hands, it's really good. Like you said, like I'm a big guy, I got big hands. Like it fits my hands better. It definitely was a bit of an adjustment getting used to the layout of the controls at first because it's got like
all the
the
buttons are at
D-pad.
the top, right? Or something is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, like all the buttons are right at the top, and then it's got the analog sticks on either side, and then underneath the analog sticks it has two trackpads. So
Yeah.
depending on how you're playing with your controller layout, it's like a bit of an adjustment. I feel like the first couple days it felt a little weird, but it's gotten a lot better since then. But it's just cool because it's like it's very substantial. It's got a big wide screen, and it's got so many options for like controller accessibility. I think that's my like one of my favorite parts of it so far. Is just you can basically on a per game
because
basis
Steam
like very
itself
easily
has
just
so much config that you can change for
yeah
controllers, right? So yeah.
yeah. It's got like
What
it's got the
what
face
spec did you
buttons.
get? What model did you get?
I went for the biggest storage. I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and get it. Like I don't want to get something less and then regret that I don't have enough storage. So I just went for it.
Yeah,
And
the
so
base one is
it's
so
been great so
small. I
far.
feel like if you do that, you have to replace it if you get the base size storage. I
Yeah,
feel like you
or you
have to
have to
just
get
like
like a
get
really big like SD card or something. Yeah,
yeah, for
yeah. And I
sure.
didn't want to like open it up and replace any drives or anything, because I'm not super confident in my ability with the hardware aspect of it. So rather than just bricking it, I was like, you know what, I'll pay a little extra,
Yeah, no,
get the nice one.
I quote unquote built my last computer or a computer at some point in time, but my current one I just bought a laptop because you know what? Fuck that. It's everyone's like it's just Legos and I'm like, yeah, but it's like really expensive Legos that when you fuck it up, you fuck it up. And
Right.
I don't know. It's I get frustrated when people online oversimplify. I mean, it is pretty simple. It's not super complicated, right? But like, I don't know. If people don't feel comfortable taking apart hardware and replacing the solid state drive or, building their
Yeah,
computer from
yeah.
scratch or whatever, like, I think that's perfectly fine, right? Like,
Oh,
I don't
totally.
think people should feel pressured to, yeah, like replace your solid state drive on your Steam Deck or build your own computer or any of that shit. Like, no, do what makes you comfortable. It's your money and it's a lot of money a lot of times, right? So like, spend it
Yeah.
how you feel is best. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean James knows too. Like I think the trade off. He and I have talked about this before. Like the trade off in my mind with that kind of thing is like, yes, you can get a better deal if you source parts yourself and you put stuff together. But then the trade off is like if you mess something up, you break something, like that's just on you, and that's it. Like that's that. Whereas like
Yeah.
if you buy it from someone who built it, like something breaks, you can say, hey, I have a warranty. Please fix this.
I
So
mean, I
Yeah.
personally
And
went
that's why
through that. Not to interrupt, sorry, but like I have a
no, go
Dell
ahead.
XPS pre-bought, like a pre-built, and it was fine for the first few months, and then I don't know, around maybe like late-ish, like maybe around this time last year, give or take, maybe a little bit before that, it would hard crash like just randomly. And for a while, Jacob and I thought it was like a DirectX issue or something, 'cause that's what it seemed to be consistent. Like anything that wasn't using one of the like more recent versions of DirectX seemed to be fine. It wasn't causing the crashes, and anything that was using more recent version, was freaking out. But luckily, like I finally caved and was under warranty, so I finally just reached out to Dell, and they had to do like multiple remote tech review sessions to figure it out, and they finally did. And of course, it was like it was just a driver issue. It was a driver that for some reason the
Oh
built-in
God.
systems didn't like pick up when it would do like the scan the internet or whatever for like new drivers. It just wasn't doing it, and the guy like finally figured it out, and it like took him a while. So it's not like I'm a complete idiot, but like I'm glad that I had the warranty where I had to pay a little extra for them to do like the full remote review of everything, but the computer works now. So, and I know how to like potentially fix it in the future if it does something similar. So
you are describing why consoles exist.
Oh, I
right?
love
Like,
consoles because
Yeah,
they just
sure.
work. I don't want to get into it. Jacob knows I have
you-
the worst luck with technology, and I literally have since he and I have been friends, which is basically as long as I've known you also, Greg. And
yeah.
consoles just work in like 90%
Yeah,
of the circumstances.
you plug it
As much
in,
as I
you turn
love
it on,
PC
and you're good to
gaming,
go. Like,
I love PC gaming, but I cannot
Totally.
deal with the wiggle room for problems to happen. It makes me so mad.
oh yeah. I do too. Absolutely. Like, and that's why it's like I love PC gaming, and I don't play as much on my PC as I do now, but obviously I'm gonna play Dragonflight as we talked about, right? And it's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, no, like I appreciate it all, right? Like I appreciate what, PC gaming has to offer, whether
Yeah,
it
for
be like,
sure. I do
stuff
everything.
something like this Steam
Hmm.
Deck, or just the simplicity of I bought a box, I plugged in a cable and it just
And it's
works, and
good to go. I
that's the
know.
end of the
It's
story,
yeah,
right? Like,
agreed.
which like
yeah,
all of
totally.
this is all this is kind of interesting because like, or I'm curious on your all's thoughts on something then, because so like I just bought a half terabyte storage expansion card for my Series X,
Hmm.
and then I think like Prime Day is going on today, and I think I saw something that was like, oh, here's this solid state drive and it's got the heat sink on it or whatever. And so like someone was like, this is literally half the cost of the equivalent Series X storage card. And so it's just like, I like, on one hand, which let me get this actually. Let me get the Series X storage card, because I don't know if you've seen it, but like this thing is fucking sleek. Let me grab it. Running. Like, look at this thing. It's just it's
And you said,
beautiful.
you said it's 500 gigs?
Yeah, this one's 500 gigs. This is half a terabyte.
Dang.
It's
Yeah,
just
that's like so. Yeah.
it's beautiful, and you just plug it in, right? Like it's what we were talking about, right? You just buy the thing, you plug it in, and it just fucking works, right? And so on one hand, I'm like, damn, this is amazing, and then on the other hand, I'm like, damn, I can unscrew a screw on the front plate of my PS5 and put in a solid state drive and save fucking $100, right? Like, why isn't there not a better middle ground of like, I don't want to unscrew something on my PS5, but I also don't want to pay twice the fucking price for this proprietary storage card, which is super sleek. Like, I
Hmm.
opened it and I was just like, God damn, this looks great. And it does, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's kind
why
of
is
like
there not a middle
it's kind of
ground?
like it sort of reminds me of like the Apple products trade off where it's like
Yeah,
you pay a lot more for an Apple product, but then when you open it up, just every bit of the experience is very sleek and
it
like
really
user
is.
friendly and like
Hmm.
it just looks good and it works out of the box and like yeah, sometimes I wish there was a much better like middle ground for that because like
Yeah.
for the for the kind of work that I do and doing like web development stuff, that's something that I think about a lot because I work on a Mac and it's like the Mac just makes a lot of that work a lot easier, but I could also get a nice like Linux computer and do a lot more legwork to get it set up and probably spend a lot less. So yeah, that kind of stuff like I don't know. I've become much more aware of that as I've gotten older, I think.
Yeah, no, there's like I'll definitely pay a premium for stuff to just work, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I think that comparison you made is a really good comparison, obviously, right? Like, it's not necessarily the phone by itself, right? That you get the phone, you set it up, and it just kind of works. It's then like you know then you get your headphones, your AirPods, and in that case, the AirPods are like the equivalent of the storage card, and you just open the case and you hold it near the phone and you're done, and that's it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or you
Yeah,
could,
exactly. Yeah.
go to Bluetooth settings and then find the thing and like enable pairing on the headset and then click the thing. And it's like, yeah, that works, right? And I mean, obviously, this is a gross oversimplification of, oh, I click through a couple menus versus I unscrew a faceplate on my PS5. But the point still stands, though, of like, there's a lot of value in I open something and it just works, and it's really great compared to having to do a little bit more yourself, even if
I'll
you.
almost always pay for that trade-off. I love technology, but I cannot deal with it.
Which, to be fair to James, like he said, like he has
I
some of the
don't
You're
know what it
worst
cursed.
is. I don't know
technological
what
luck
it
I've
is.
ever. Yeah,
And I'm not like one of those people that like refuses to update like things regularly or like check for drivers. I'm always cleaning dust out of stuff. Like I take care of my things. Jacob's lived with me. He knows. Greg, you
yeah,
almost
oh
lived
yeah,
with me basically in the dorms. Like we were in each other's rooms pretty often. I take
Yeah.
care of my things and I always have, and
No,
they
for sure.
still do not work.
yeah. It's like he has like a field, like an
I
electromagnetic field or something.
literally
I don't know.
do.
I've
It's not
theorized
even a
about it a
joke.
lot.
I mean, there was a joke that at one point it was that Susie eats the Wi-Fi, and yeah, so she also occasionally will have like You know, like we were talking about, oh, stuff just working, but then, you know, I'll give Susie my phone and she'll just like run into a bug like right off the bat. And I'm like, dude,
Right.
literally how? I'm just like, how did you run into this like 2 seconds after me giving it to you? Like, it's just ridiculous. So she must also be cursed. You must share the curse with
I
her.
know who
I had
knows.
the curse for a little while at the last place that I lived. For whatever reason, the Wi-Fi there was just
Oh
like
yeah,
nothing I did could make it work. And I think like, to tie it back to what you were saying, like that to me, that's like that is the kind of thing that I never expected when I was like younger. Because like the first time I was able to afford it myself, I bought all the parts, put together a PC, and I was like totally on the boat of oh, I built this custom thing, like I did it
Yeah,
myself. It's way
exactly.
cooler
hmm
than the console. Like, all right, and it's so funny now because I think I trend more towards, like you said, like stuff that you just open up and it works. Like, because I think my time has become more precious now. It's like a flip flop thing, right?
definitely.
Like when you get older, it's like when you're
Yeah.
young, like you don't have like any money, like no expendable income, but you have like all the time in the world. And then you get older, you get expendable income, but you lose that time. And so it's like, I never thought about that, but I've definitely like been aware of it happening, like me becoming so much more focused on like just like the ease of use and maximizing time and stuff like that. And so it's like that kind of thing. And then, just the stuff that frustrates me now is not anything crazy. It's just like technical stuff. Like if my Wi-Fi is just like killing my ability to like, play with James or like other friends and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
on
hmm
the, few times I can do it. It's just like that's the stuff that drives me crazy now.
Well, and that's why I think, going back to the Steam Deck, obviously, right? Like the Steam Deck is trying to bridge that gap between
Yeah.
a PC and a
Yeah,
console,
yeah.
right? Like, and that's why, like, if I got a Steam Deck, I would probably put in the little bit amount of work to put Windows on it for the sole
Sure, sure.
purpose of I would like to take advantage of PC Game Pass,
hmm
right? That's the
Yeah,
only
yeah.
reason I would put in that much amount of work. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, like I totally understand why someone would buy it and just use SteamOS because SteamOS, from what I can
Right.
tell, is just like it's pretty good in it. Yeah, it just works most of the time, right? Like it really is bridging that gap of like making the normal traditional PC experience more like a console in terms of just like you buy the thing, you turn it on, and you're good to go, right? Like, and so
Yeah,
it's really
and
great.
to that point, like I think like Valve when they built the console, like they had that in mind. I think the things we've been talking about because now that we're talking about, I'm kind of thinking about just the experience of using it. And when you boot it up and you go right into the Steam OS and you see your library and stuff, they have a very cool version of the store in the library for the Steam Deck that shows you exactly like if something is there's like a spectrum. It's like, is this game great on Steam Deck? Like, does it fully work
Oh yeah,
completely? Does
yeah.
it scale super well? If it does, it gets like a green check. If it mostly works, but there's some stuff that you might have to deal with, like configure, it gets like a yellow. And then if it is not proven to work at all, it might still
Yeah.
work if you do some external stuff to get it working. But like in terms of just like ease of use, they won't rate it at that. And so even if you don't, like you said, even if you just use SteamOS, like that idea is baked into it. It's like, here's a spectrum of, here are the games that are super easy, here are the games that are kind of easy, here are the games that like good luck if you try to get it to work. And I think that's
Yeah.
like super cool, and it just makes it so much easier to use it.
Well, it's nice, and it's nice that they can do that because obviously it's the standard console thing of like this is the hardware, we know the hardware, right? Like we know if we
Yeah,
can
right.
figure out, I noticed this the other day. I was in the Xbox app on my PC installing something. I don't remember what. Um and yeah, I noticed this little thing. It's kind of similar to what you were talking about, just like if you go to a game in the Xbox app on your PC, it'll have like a should play great on this PC thing. Or I'm sure it'll have a, oh, this won't play great on this PC thing, right?
Right.
But then like some games it'll have like, oh, performance check not available yet. And so it's just kind of interesting because yeah, like that sub or tooltip or whatever is like, oh, we compare this game's performance on PC similar to yours. And so I really appreciate that like, they're trying to, even though it's not a single piece of hardware and you have the broad variety of, PC hardware, they're still trying to like give you a good idea in the store of is this going to play well or like should I just not even bother installing it?
Yeah, totally. And I like that too because sometimes I have the free time or like the will to sit around and do some crazy like behind the scenes stuff to configure something to work. And I've done that for a couple of Steam Deck things, but a lot of times like if I'm going to
Yeah,
play
you're
it, it's
saying you
just like
set up
maybe,
emulators on it, right? Like I
yeah,
imagine
right,
some of the
right.
emulator stuff was not obviously go Steam, click button, right?
Well, you say that, but the emulator setup actually on the Steam Deck is incredibly easy only because I use this really cool tool called EmuDeck. Like I think it's just emudeck.com,
Ah,
and it's like it is just an entire like completely put together package of just like RetroArch and all the emulators you could want, and it's like
nice. Yeah.
super user friendly. So you just like basically click and download, and it's good to go. Now I have done like a bit more work to get like certain games working, things like that. But yeah, like that whole experience, like it's cool to have the range of options rather than just being stuck in like the camp of doing everything custom, the traditional like old school PC gaming setup kind of stuff versus like just the console where you don't have as many options. Like it's cool to have that middle ground, and like you said, like it's on the Xbox now. Like it's cool that it's kind of that kind of thinking is ubiquitous. Like I know James and I have talked a lot about, one thing that we think about a lot in modern games is like, does this game respect my time as a person?
Oh
That's
yeah.
like a big,
Yeah.
right? That's like a big factor in like if you stick with the game, enjoy it. And so it's cool to see that like coming through to the hardware side as well.
Well, I'm gonna get some flack for saying this. And I've said this before, and I got some flack from I think Max or something. That's why I don't. That's one of the exactly what you said. Does the game respect your time? That's one of the reasons I don't play Dark Souls games is because I think a game that doesn't have a
I
difficulty
feel that.
setting, and it's not only that it doesn't have a difficulty setting, it's that it doesn't have a difficulty setting. It was intentionally made very difficult, and then the icing on the cake is you lose progress when you die. It's all three of those together, right? Like if it was two of the three, if it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
really hard, and you can't make it easier, but you don't lose progress, then like okay, sure, right?
It's
Or if you lose progress, but you can change the difficulty so it's easier, then like, okay, yeah, fine. It's just the all of them together. I'm just like, I
I
don't know.
think
I don't feel like those games are respectful of my
that's why
time.
Fallen Order is such a good
Yeah, I love that
version
game.
of that because it has the difficulties, it still has the difficulty, and then doesn't like you don't lose a ton of progress when you like lose a boss fight or something. It's
yeah,
also why I like Elden Ring so much because I never feel like I'm stuck and I never really felt like my time was wasted because you can always go do something else and like power up if you need to. And I will, as someone who is not good at any of the FromSoft Souls games, I adore Elden Ring. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I think Elden Ring, like, definitely out of all the From catalog games, like Elden Ring is the one that is most respectful of that kind of stuff. And I think like that's something that they've learned.
Yeah,
Like you can
I hope
see that if
so.
you just like look at their whole catalog, you can see the ways that they've learned to like, at least in my perception of it, like balance that difficulty and presenting the kind of game that they want to present, but also like making things a little bit more convenient for users. Like they've
Yeah, and
learned a lot
I
more about walking that
appreciate
tightrope.
exactly. I appreciate exactly what you said of like, I mean, obviously they have this artistic vision, and this is the game they want to make, and this is the thing that they want to, how they want to portray it, and obviously lots of people love it, and it's great, and I'm really glad that those people have that game that they like. But yeah, no, I mean those just
Right.
they're just not for me because yeah,
That's
I don't
fair.
know, exactly like you said, like it's just it feels like it doesn't respect my time. And I don't know, like obviously I play lots of other garbage games, but I feel like a lot of the other garbage games I play though, it's like most of those are the type of game where it's just game to game, right? So like, whether that be I don't fucking know, like Halo or Call of Duty or any of these things. And yeah, you could argue that like, oh, well, Halo doesn't respect your time because there's no meaningful form of progression. Well, I mean, my counter argument there would be that like Halo only asks for 10 minutes of me at a time. And that's it.
Right. Right.
It's a 10-minute chunk. And if I don't have fun in that 10-minute chunk, then I don't play another 10-minute chunk.
Hmm.
And that's the end of it, right? Like, and I didn't lose anything, for doing that and all this. And so I don't know. I feel like that's kind of the difference there for me because I do play a lot of garbage games that a lot of people would be like, dude, those things do not respect your time. And I feel like to me, it comes back to, yeah, the reason I'm okay with it is because it is that like you play it one game at a time, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
it's not some like overarching game where you have some like pseudo obligation to beat it or whatever. It is a 10-minute commitment and that is it, right? And so,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. Whereas like if you get halfway through some other game, then you could argue that like you just not wasted that time you've already spent, right? But it is unsatisfying to not complete that journey, which is
Yeah.
why I feel like that's where the difference comes into me. I don't know. Um,
No,
like I
I
said,
think
I've
that's
had this
fair.
discussion before, and I think I think lots of people disagree with me, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, so I do think like I'm a bit of an outlier from that perspective on FromSoft games, but I think for me, like I definitely think you're right about that, like the design and stuff, and like losing progress and things like that. For me, like I'm just a glutton for punishment. Like I love really hard games, so like to me, like for me, that's not disrespectful of my time, at least for what I want to get out of it, because like
I
that
would
whole
say exactly
process and
like if
stuff.
that's what you're
Yeah,
looking for, you're really looking for that challenge. Then like exactly, and like that's why it's not like I want necessarily them to go add a difficulty setting to Dark Souls or
sure,
whatever. Like I think it's perfectly fine for them to keep making that game for that genre of people. I just
right.
yeah, I think there's plenty of people that it's not for them, and that's a-okay because then fucking Respawn's gonna go make Fallen Order 2 and it's gonna be
Yeah,
really
exactly.
fucking good. Like
Exactly.
Fallen Order 2
Yeah.
is gonna be fucking phenomenal.
But like, yeah, no, like you said, like Halo and stuff. Like, I definitely like. I would never say that something like that doesn't respect your time just because there's not progression and stuff. Because like,
Hmm.
if you flash back like I don't know, 15 years or maybe a little less, whatever, like to the early days of like multiplayer and stuff when there was no concept of like multiplayer like cosmetic progression and things like that, and it was just you playing the
Well, a
game
lot of
like
times it was just a
you.
number. Like the progression would be a
Yeah,
number,
exactly.
literally just be
Just
like,
a
oh, I'm
level.
rank
Yeah,
100 or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
and
And you would
obviously
never
Infinite
say
doesn't
like,
have that, but yeah. Go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
and you would never say like, "Oh, this game is I'm wasting my time playing," because it was just the joy of playing it. So yeah,
Hmm.
for
Exactly.
me,
Yeah.
the things that disrespect my time the most, or feel like they disrespect my time the most, the things that I kind of like feel that way the most when I'm playing are things like live service games that feel like they're padding out the content or adding in like a lot of FOMO, like fear of missing out stuff, where it's like if you're not in there grinding it out like at least 3 hours a day, every day of the week, like you are not going to get all the stuff. Like you're going to be behind the meta, like things like that. That's where like I feel like I'm like, man, this game doesn't respect my time. It's just trying to monopolize my time completely, and
It's
that just like
yeah,
never feels good.
monopolize your time. Yeah. No, I think that's it's such a fine line because like on one hand, I look at Fortnite and I'm like, God damn, Fortnite is still the shining pinnacle of a live service game, right? Like
Right?
It
Yeah.
really is.
like the the content in that game is good. They continuously update it. It plays smoothly. It's cross-platform. All of this stuff. Like B, they obviously started the battle pass, and a lot of people now, especially people who are used to the traditional "here's my $60, give me my game, please." They really hate the battle pass system, right? And I don't blame them, and it's arguably because like a lot of these companies are doing it so much worse than Fortnite did, right? Like
Oh
Fortnite,
yeah.
it gives you currency in it. The content in the battle pass itself is good and cool, right? Like they had fucking Darth Vader as a skin, right? Like who doesn't want Darth Vader
Right.
as your skin at the end of your Fortnite battle pass, right? Like, and then also then the act of doing it is enjoyable, right? Like they have an entire like season story, and every week is like these new quests specific, like they take you to a different part of the map so you experience something else, right? And then you
Yeah.
have a game like Overwatch. And then sorry, and then more importantly, you can complete the Fortnite battle pass, the season pass, extremely
Yes.
quickly, right? Like it it is way easier to complete that than it is to complete season passes in other games. And so I feel like that's where like
Yeah. Totally.
a lot of that comes in, especially you're talking about like monopolizing your time, right? Like I feel like a lot of these live service games with these season passes that are trying to, introduce this FOMO that you're talking about, yeah, they do it and it's just it takes too long, right? Like it is very difficult to do more than one live service game at a time as an adult and actually complete the entire season or whatever in it, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like it's just because so many places do it wrong, I guess. I don't know. They're not Fortnite. Go do the Fortnite thing.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly. It's like I don't
goodness.
know. It's like I kind of get it because I feel like a lot of games, like it's not necessarily just a monetization thing. Like part of me feels the cynical side of me is like, okay, a lot of these games are being built this way as a live service game to make sure that you are like in there as much as you possibly can be, so that you're more likely to spend money on stuff, right? And like that's just like
For
the
sure.
unfortunate reality of like the marketing side of it. And I think about like sometimes I think about like Destiny. Like I love Destiny 2 for a lot of reasons, but also like I've had a lot of complaints about, that kind of design in the game and stuff over the
Hmm.
years. And like you said, like Fortnite has those elements, but then like there have been times where like, Gabby and I will be like, oh, we haven't checked out Fortnite in a few months. Let's spin it up and we'll get back into it for like a couple weeks, like right at the end of the season. And we'll still have time to do the whole battle pass, do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so
It's crazy.
but on the flip side of that, I do feel like the non-cynical side of me is like, well, these people want to build these live service games so that they're just like these expansive worlds that you can inhabit, so that you want to be in them as much as possible. But I think that's where the line is, right? It's like providing an experience that is good enough that the player wants to be logged into that live service all the time versus a experience where they feel like they have to. Otherwise, they're missing out
Hmm.
on
Yeah,
components of the game.
some people would say, "Oh, that's the developer versus publisher line, right? Like the developer
Right,
is
right.
building this world because they want you to do experiences all, and then the publisher is the one who wants you to actually like solely commit to their thing,
Hmm.
so you're more likely to spend money there, right?" I mean, like an excellent example of what you're talking about of like they're doing it is, I played Diablo Immortal when it came out and like thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed the game, truly did, but that game is fucking awful at respecting your time, and it is a
Yeah,
perfect
right.
example of like, yeah, we're trying to introduce like that battle pass is bullshit. We're talking about how like Fortnite seasons passes are so
Yeah.
great and you can easily complete them all. Like Diablo Immortals has more levels than it does days of the fucking thing, and they have like a double point thing every day. But even if you do it, it doesn't give you enough things for an entire level. It is the most heinous bullshit battle pass there goddamn is. And that's such an excellent example of like they do all of these things to try and get you to keep coming back every day and play the game every day. And it's just, yeah, no, I mean, I've stopped playing at this point because like I got to the point where like, okay, I've had my fun with this, right? Like I've done what I wanted to do in
Yeah, yeah.
Diablo Immortal, and I had my fun with it, right? And so I'm gonna set this down and go do something else. I'm curious. You were talking about, you texted me. You were like, oh, you love fighting games. Have you played Multiverses by chance?
I actually have not played multiverses yet. I love fighting games. Like I've been playing it's probably like one of the oldest genres of games that I've ever been aware of. I used to when I was like a little kid, I remember I used to play like the original Mortal Kombat on my uncle's Sega Genesis, and he would do the cheat code to turn off the blood so that I wouldn't get like traumatized by the
Yeah,
pixelated
yeah.
gore.
What, you didn't want the
But I haven't.
brutality, fatality to scar your child for
Yeah,
life?
see,
Like,
see now, yeah, now I couldn't live without it. But you know, yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried multiverses yet, but I have been very interested to see like the ways in which fighting games have adapted to this kind of like live service thing. Like for me, one of the biggest games that I've played, probably I would say I haven't like looked. I don't know if there's a way to look at the stats actually for PlayStation, but I'm gonna guess like far and away my most played PS4 game from the last gen was Mortal Kombat 11. Like I played
Hmm.
so much Mortal Kombat
Played
11,
a
and it
lot.
definitely has like, yeah, James knows lots of calls of just him hearing me in the background, just like fatality. Um, and that game is interesting because it has those elements like on the online component. Um, and so like, and some of that stuff kind of felt like, it wasn't great about respecting your time, sort of like we've been talking about, but it's like weird with fighting games because they're sort of like a fusion between, or what you were talking about before, where it's like you play Halo and it's like, even if there are elements of the game that doesn't respect your time, at the end of the day, like you can still just jump in and play like a match, and just do like a 10-minute match. And fighting games are like that
yeah.
to an even more granular level because it's like you jump in, you play for like a 4-minute match, and then you can just stop there if you want. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's just interesting to see that how fighting games are kind of evolving with that. But no, I haven't tried out Multiverses to go back to what you were
So
saying.
I'm curious. So the reason I ask is because, I was browsing the Multiverses subreddit today because they just had a new character come out today. They announced their Halloween event. And it is kind of an insane. Their skins are very expensive, right? Like they have like $20 equivalent skins, which I agree is absolutely utterly ridiculous. But my response to those people are, yeah, well, the game is free, and I realize, and then those people would be like, okay, yeah, but I'd rather pay $60 and then the skin not be $20, right? And I'm like, okay, no, I get you. I agree with you even, but I also realize that if this game cost $60, the game would be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
we've talked about that on this podcast previously.
I think it's a fact of fucking life at this point, right? Like
Yeah.
there's just too many
yeah.
there's too many games, and so it's really hard for people to commit to spending $60 on a game that they maybe aren't going to play for however long. And so we talked last week, James, we talked about the dollar an hour thing, right?
Yeah.
And so like free to play games solve the dollar an hour dilemma. And so I'm curious, Jacob, playing Mortal Kombat 11, like I think the reason Multiverses needs to be free to play is because it needs a big enough player base to sustain good matchmaking at all tiers of skill, right? Like, and actually it's kind of funny because like, Packy and I have a couple of characters that like our MMR on them is like, it's at the really crazy part, right? And then we go play some other characters where our MMR is terrible and we play really bad people. And I'm like, this is great. And more importantly, it's great because it shows the game is healthy, right? Like it has that entire range of like skill-based players. Do you think Mortal Kombat 11 is that way? Because my experience with paid fighting games, no matter what it is, every paid fighting game I've ever played online it is only good people. Only good people play fighting games online is my experience.
Yeah. So okay, so I think there's a lot of stuff there that you said that is like definitely valid. Like I think there's not been a lot of like to my knowledge or like what I can think of, there's not been a lot of like more, I'll say like traditional fighting games, the classic style of like either 3D or 2D, but just like the one-on-one fighting kind of fighting games. I can't really think of many that have tried the free-to-play model, and I would guess that that's partially just because, even though the fighting game genre is like alive and well, it's definitely like, nowhere near the mass appeal of a lot of other
it's
genres.
Not its peak, yeah.
Right.
Even what it was back in the day,
Super Smash.
Right? Like,
yeah. Like the golden age of the older consoles. Like
the only one I can think of, by the way, is Killer Instinct.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, totally.
That's actually I'm not even 100% sure it's free to play, but I'm like 99% sure it's free to play. It is free.
Well, it's definitely on Game Pass as far as I know, so there's that at least. But
so I think Game Pass also solves that problem. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, continue.
It does, yeah. No, it's kind of like it's hard to say like whether or not the player base is like wide or not, because I think like I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm pretty good at Mortal Kombat.
You're pretty good, yeah. You don't know if the bads exist because you don't play them.
So like they definitely existed when it came out, right? Like when I played it, like it was very popular, lots of like player range and stuff. But in terms of like longevity, that's what I don't know, because for me, like with Mortal Kombat being an example, like I stayed pretty avid with that. So by the time I think the player base like contracted, it's harder for me to say whether or not there were still like a lot of newer players. But I definitely think like with paid fighting games, like there's a huge drop off because, one of the ones that I picked up kind of later on was Tekken 7. Like I got into that like pretty late in the game's life cycle. And, Tekken already has a reputation for being like super technical, pretty hard to get into. But like when I got into it, like the amount of players that were new or not good was way lower. So I had the trouble of just getting like absolutely smashed in almost every match online for a long time. So yeah, I think like, I don't know, that's an interesting one. Like I would love to see a fighting game try the more free to play model, because I think, it would definitely open the player base up a bit, but then I wonder if the reason...
I cannot think of one besides Killer Instinct. And Killer Instinct also, I think, is not cross-platform, obviously, right? And so
right.
It extra needs everything it can to have a player base, right? Because like not being cross-platform and being a paid thing would be really hard to do. Which
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you mentioned Game Pass, and I think that is also like a decent way to combat that problem too, in terms of like, because it's not even just like having the full range of skill, um, when you do it, but it's also like having good connections, having reasonable matchmaking times, not having to wait a minute for a match, being able to get in 10 seconds
Yeah.
and your connection is good, right? Like all that stuff. But no, I do think Game Pass helps with that. I still don't think it solves it, because I go back to, you mentioned Tekken 7. I believe Tekken 7 was on Game Pass at one point, and then I tried it, and I'm pretty sure I played online and I got stomped. And
Right.
Soul Calibur also, I think Soul Calibur, whatever the current one is, was on Game Pass at one point. Packy and I actually played that a lot with each other. And yeah, no, we would, we played once we played with each other for a very long time, just one-on-ones. We started to play online a little bit, and like, yeah, it was still just like, oh my god, only good people
Yeah.
play that fucking game, right? Like you go
Oh,
into a
totally.
thing,
Yeah.
and they do like the super duper pirate combo thing where you like, I don't know, sorry, it's
You
just
just get like carried out of the stage, ringed out immediately. Yeah, totally. Like I actually picked up Soul Calibur 6, which is the most current one. I picked it up rather recent. I usually play my fighting games on the PlayStation, like PS4, PS5, for whatever reason. I think like they tend to hold a community a bit longer than some of the other platforms. Not sure why, but so I picked up Soul Calibur 6 like not too long ago, just because I was wanting some, just Soul Calibur action. Because I've been, a fan of the series for a long time.
I
Just
love
played
six.
kind of
I love
casually,
Soul
and
Calibur 6 for sure.
yeah, no, it's a great game. But like you said, like the community is just like the player base is so much smaller now that you are really, especially if you're just queuing into like the general matchmaking systems, like you're really only getting like people that have been playing it or like love to play it pretty often. And
Yeah.
a lot of the discussion I've seen online around games like that is like, well, you can play with people who are learning, but you just need to join these discords and join, like custom matches and stuff, and like specifically connect
Yeah,
with people.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. Like,
Right. And it's like,
I
it's
don't want
like,
to go
I
to a
think that,
Discord to find a game. I don't want to go to looking
right.
for group to find a game. I want to click the
Yeah.
button and I want it to work.
It's like,
Like,
yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's like, that's cool that that's there. Like, I appreciate that the community like has that aspect. And I certainly like that, that like there's a place online where you can go and be like, hey, I'm interested in this game, talk to other people who are interested in it. But I think that can only really be like a nice additional component of a community. Like you can't depend on that for like the game's player base to flourish. Cause like you said, like most people don't have time for that. Like they just want to hit the button and play the game. And also maybe not
yeah.
get absolutely stomped into the dirt like every single time they play a match.
Well,
So
and and I think obviously, therefore, that's why crossplay is like, I'm so grateful crossplay is more common now. Fuck that PC crossplay, but I'll, give me my console crossplay, and that's pretty excellent.
Which, like, again, like credit to Fortnite, because I feel like Fortnite is like a huge driver behind the explosion of crossplay. Like they've done so much right. Like honestly, what a great game! Like what an iconic game.
Yeah, no, it's all these people complaining about, all these free to play games, whether it be multiverses or Overwatch 2, which I mean, Overwatch 2 is another. This one's particularly funny because Overwatch was paid, and
Right.
so then you have the people who paid it, and then Overwatch 2 comes out, and if you had already paid for Overwatch, Overwatch 2 is just objectively worse. Like in terms of unlocking things and monetization, right? Like, because
Yeah.
the benefit of this, again, is the game. Actually, the only benefit to it for people who had already paid for it is now they, again, have more people to play against, right? But like,
Exactly.
those people paid the money already, and they're just now getting this objectively worse experience, basically. And I feel for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm glad I didn't have to pay money for Overwatch, and I don't really give a shit if I can't unlock skins because it's a first-person game anyways. Why do people care about skins in first-person games? I do not understand it. I will never understand it. This is why 343 was really stupid to rely on this to fund Halo Infinite development, because it's a first-person game. Sorry.
Yeah, like
I do not
no,
understand cosmetics in first-person games. I mean,
it's even worse in Overwatch 2, because at least like the ideal would be that, you know, you can get the skins for like your guns or whatever, right? Because then you can see it, or you get different assassinations and, you know, the classic Halo style. And in Overwatch, I played more of the first one. I haven't played the second one, but like the different skins would have different weapons and sometimes even like completely different effects for like your ult or whatever. I remember specifically what was it, Hanzo? He had like for his like wolf one, it was like wolves that came out of the ult instead of dragons or whatever, which is like super cool to see when you get to have it.
For sure.
But from what I've seen of Overwatch 2, a lot of the skins do not change the weapons or effects or anything. So it's even more insult to injury. Where not only do you not look different, charms, none of it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's well, like I don't understand it. Like Fortnite, going back to that, like you can be fucking Darth Vader and you're looking at fucking Darth Vader the entire
you see him the
game.
whole time. Yeah. No, it's funny that you bring up Overwatch, because I was like the biggest Overwatch 1 fan for such a long time. Like,
yeah,
I got into that game like around the time it launched. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like honestly though, like probably some of the most fun I've ever had in gaming. Like the first I don't know, like 6-7 months of that game being out, like just pure joy. Like it was just the thing that I most went back to and played, and like it was great. And I think
it's a good game. Like it really is like just a good game.
But I think like the development and like, you know, overall like balancing of that game and just like its course over its lifespan, and now the segue into Overwatch 2 is like such a uniquely Blizzard just like fuck up kind of situation where it's just like,
well, again, it's the perfect, like half the shit's great and half the shit is busted, and it's just like, you know, the classic like 2 steps forward, 1 step backward type thing, right? Like,
yeah, and like you mentioned this earlier, like you mentioned like a lot of people kind of have this sense of like maybe there's like a, you know, a delineation between like the developers and like the marketing side of like the publisher, the marketing side of game development and stuff like that. And I think that's definitely true. Like that's the sense I get, right? Is like if you play the game, like the core of Overwatch is just a fun game. Like the characters,
it's
like,
good.
all play well. Like it's really fun. But then like all the stuff on top of it about the experience of playing it, it's just like, who is making these decisions? Like what is happening?
I'm curious, Jacob. Have you watched Mythic Quest?
I have not. I need to. It's been on my list forever.
It's good. I was just laughing and thinking of it because I mean, like the character Danny Pudi, who's Abed from Community plays, he's like the monetization guy for the studio. And I mean, it's literally that. Like he's just like this awful fucking person who's just like completely soulless and just trying to, you know, like put all these like, you know, ways to make money and milk players into the game. And the rest of the people are just like, fuck you, Brad. We just want to make the game. And I love it. It's such a good show.
The biggest like example of that to me, and James knows because like we have ranted about this to each other like so many times, like is Cyberpunk. Like I swear, dude, when that game came out, I was like, I felt so bad for the developers because I was like, you know that they have slaved over like putting the systems and stuff together for this game. And eventually, like the publishing, marketing side of CD Projekt Red was like, fuck it, we're shipping it. Like, send it out the door. It's gonna sell like crazy. It's already sold pre-orders. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll fix it later. And it's like, I just felt so bad for them because like you could see when the game came out that if it had just more time in the oven, it could have been like just great from the get-go.
And then it got it. It got its more time in the oven, and now it's in a pretty good state. I haven't meaning to play it, actually. I own it. I bought a disc of it for like $10. It's one of the very few discs I own. And yeah, I should go fucking play that game. Jeez.
I think like I had so much fun playing it when it came out, but it was also like just unacceptable. Like I played it on launch, and like I think in the like couple weeks that I played that game, there were more glitches per like just gaming session for that game than I've ever had in the rest of my time playing games combined. Like, I mean, I'm talking like hundreds.
Were they
maybe
fun
thousands.
glitches or were they shitty glitches?
I don't know. Like some of them were fun, and you know, it's funny because that game had like such a spread of experiences. Like I played it on PC, and I had probably, like I said, like I would say thousands of glitch experiences, and for the majority of them, it was just like kind of stupid stuff where it's like, oh, this whole section of traffic's not loading, or like, oh, the police officer that's trying to apprehend me just spawned on top of my head and like fell in front of me, and it's like, oh, that's kind of, whatever, that's kind of innocuous. And then like there's completely game breaking stuff that happened, or like, you lose progress and things like that. But my experience was like not even close to the worst. Like James played it on the PS4 and it was like borderline unplayable.
I have played it on the PS4 and I've played it on the Series X, and I did not enjoy it either way. I do not think
that's the most hyped.
Oh no, you don't understand how excited I was. I bought because I love Cyberpunk as like a genre, and like CD Projekt Red, obviously, like I love Witcher 3. I've played all of Witcher 3. I've done both DLCs, love it. I had like the art books that came out before the game's release. I was like super ready, and yeah, disappointed both times. So it's all right.
Really sad.
It's like my quote for that game when I played it was like, "I love this, but it's also unacceptable." Like that was my kind of like sum it up. And like I just felt bad because like I had this image in my head the whole time of like the developers who like poured their heart and soul into it, who just like, they worked so hard to realize this vision, and they were getting there, like they were almost there, and relatively almost there, and then they were forced to put it out, and then they just all they could do was like sit and just look at Twitter all day and just see like the constant stream of people being like, man, this game sucks, like what are you thinking?
It's gotta be tough for them.
And that makes me think of the exact opposite of that, which is I remember the first God of War game when it came out. Obviously, it was so well received, and then there's this video that made the rounds of the game director just like reading the reviews and breaking down into tears because of how like how grateful he was, and everything for like the excellent reviews. And so that's like the exact opposite of like, the people doing doing exactly what he was doing, sitting there reading through the reviews and it's just getting panned over and over again. And that's gotta be heartbreaking in the other direction, right? Like he was crying because they were tears of joy, right? Like, and those Cyberpunk developers were probably crying tears of sadness.
Right. And it's like in Cyberpunk's case, like I think you could do a whole nother episode of the podcast on this, right? Like there's a whole aspect of like crunch in the industry you could talk about, but like for Cyberpunk, they had documented, like it was known, right, that they were crunching, they were working overtime. Like these people were like really hitting the grindstone to get this game out, and then it kind of felt like they had the rug pulled out from under them. Like because we know that like the team is capable of making great games. Like The Witcher 3, it had its own smaller set of problems at launch and stuff, but like it's a great game. And I think Cyberpunk, underneath all of the stuff that happened and all of the like half-baked systems and stuff, like I think at its core it was good. Like it just didn't have all the time in the oven that it needed. And I don't know, I think that like that's an interesting aspect of like modern games, is like it's such a big industry now that there's such a like disconnect between
and because
the
it's so big, there's all that
sometimes.
Competition and urgency to get the thing out, right? So I feel that. I mean, I'm very excited to play Cyberpunk, despite I'm a monster and I've tried Witcher 3 twice and I didn't like it either time.
That's fair.
And we won't get into that. Because I appreciate the fact that I am objectively wrong in this. But I don't think CD Projekt, me personally, I'm not like, oh, they're the best developer ever and they make these great games.
Sure,
but I'm still excited to try Cyberpunk because it still does look good. And so I'm hoping it is good. But then, James, you said that, and you've got me worried. And so,
hey,
we'll see.
I can be very particular with the games I like. So I don't know. I feel like I have a pretty level opinion on things, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
it's funny Packy's not here for this, because Packy is the king of, I will play a game for 5 minutes and I will uninstall it. Like,
no, I do that all the time. I do that all the time.
Packy, he is the fastest fucking uninstall in the West, right?
I 100% understand that. I mostly only do that with things that like usually Game Pass, because then it's like quote unquote free, so I don't have like the financial responsibility to play at least a little bit. But if you look at my Steam library, last week I went through that for you guys, like at least rough like numbers. A lot of those games have 2 hours of playtime, and that's it.
Versus
So
2 hours is a lot for Paggy.
no, I know. But that's because I had to buy all of those. If you look at my Xbox
Well, I think-
ones, it'll be
that's
less.
true, yeah.
I think you oftentimes too, like you are a quick uninstall, but like you also, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? Like a lot of times my experience of hearing you like go through that is because like you'll install something and then it just will not fucking work on your computer.
It's like freaking
very
Hell
low
Let
at all.
Loose. Greg, I don't know if you know what Hell Let Loose is. It's a vaguely like Milsim light World War II game. And the first time I tried it with Jacob, because he and his fraternity brothers were super excited to play it when it got like one of its big updates last year, the year before. I was still using my previous computer, I think. Or maybe it was this
His
quote-unquote
I don't remember. Fisher Price computer.
Yeah.
No, it was your Fisher Price computer.
And I had it glitch out so bad. I have no idea like exactly what it did. The menu, I don't remember. It like broke into like a black screen and like melted itself. I have never seen a game's UI turn into like putty, but that's basically what it did.
It was like the game couldn't detect like something. I don't know what it was like. The resolution got super broken, and it was broken so badly that he could not reset it in any way, like outside of maybe going into like the INI files.
Yeah, I would have had to
stuff.
like.
So he was just like
basically like rewrite the game if I was going to get it to work for whatever. And I don't know why it did it. And that wasn't a bad computer. It was a decent computer, and it just didn't work. And we've played it since on this non-Fisher Price computer, and it's been fine. But
that's like like you said, like he got a new computer recently, and then we started playing it again like a couple months back,
and it's fine.
It was fine, like it worked.
It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, one of my old computers, it had this janky fucking bug where it was a particular pair of headphones. They were USB headphones. So it wasn't just like raw 3.5 millimeter output.
I feel this spiritually.
Like it was I couldn't play. Maybe it was everything. I think actually just like the computer just randomly crashed when those headphones were in. But then it was made worse playing Heroes of the Storm, right? So like I'd be playing Heroes of the Storm, like, and if I was using those headphones, like it would crash like every other game, and like just the entire computer. And it's just like, this is fucking ridiculous. And like I have those headphones, I've used them on this computer. It doesn't crash the fucking computer. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Like you said, like that is like the core of like the dichotomy of like the ease of console gaming versus the complexity of PC gaming. Like you said before, like so many people try to reduce it, and they're like, no, if you just you take the time to look up what you're doing, like it's super easy. But like I have a set of headphones that I use usually when I play on the computer, and if I wait too long between talking, it will just stop transmitting my audio, and I'll go into the Windows settings, and it's still picking up that audio is coming through, but it will just not send the audio across.
Like problem with one of our podcasts. Yeah, I think
I had that problem consistently with like this decent-ish Logitech headset. Like we'll be playing like even Phasmo or anything else. Yeah, it's the same one Jacob has. Like we'll be playing Phasmo, which has like voice recognition, like the pickup and everything, and everything is adamant that it is like receiving audio and transmitting, and then it's just not working. And I'm like, all right, I don't know where the mix-up is.
Yeah. Speaking of, have you never played Phasmophobia, Greg?
Oh, you got to play Phasmophobia.
I don't think I have.
It's so good.
I have not.
You should. We should play together on Steam sometime.
We really should.
What is it? What is it like?
It's a 4-player ghost hunting.
It's a ghost hunting simulator, and it's really cool because the game has built-in voice recognition, like James was saying. So you'll go into a house. And like the whole idea is like you go into the house, right, and you're trying to identify the ghost type. Like your goal is to go in, gather 3 pieces of evidence, because every ghost type has 3 associated pieces of evidence associated with it. Like maybe this one makes the temperature go down, so you pick it up on your thermometer, or like maybe this one talks on the spirit box or whatever. But it has so much cool stuff in it because it recognizes your voice. So one of the ways that you interact with the game is like you go in, and they'll tell you like, oh, this ghost name is like Evan Johnson. And so you have to go in and say like, Evan Johnson, are you with us?
Oh.
Evan Johnson. And it's
like the wild. Spirit box. I mean, it's like a simple version of Works, because it like obviously just picks up in a few key phrases, but the Spirit box works. Like if you ever watched any pop ghost hunting show like Ghost Adventures, for example, and they do the spirit box where they're like, "How old are you?" And then the spirit box says something back. Like it does that, and it's great. I love that game so much.
Sounds cool.
Super cool game. And it was like originally like the core concept of it and stuff. Like it has a bigger team now, but it was made by just like one guy.
Yeah, and I mean it was super janky
yeah,
for a while, and
I love those
come a long
stories.
way for sure. They just had a huge update come out, which we haven't actually tried yet, but very good game for what it is.
Did either of you all get into the like Amugu phase? Sorry, I'm going to speak real English. The Among Us phase.
We played for a little bit when it like got popular. Yeah.
You don't call things Amugu and Vuju games and Vidjas and Looty Shoot. You don't speak in broken English in your lives.
I always see people call it like Amogus or whatever, like on Twitch and stuff. Yeah, it's like I never understand like why it's short for that. But yeah, we did play a good bit though. Like for when it was like the thing to do and during the pandemic and stuff.
Yeah, no, it definitely and that's I think obviously the pandemic really helped. It was a good way for people to reconnect. And Jacob, I don't know if I've mentioned this explicitly on the podcast, but I've definitely mentioned it to James and Packy. I mean, one of the reasons I love doing this is because we do it on a schedule, right? Like it's every week, same time. It's a set time, and Packy bailed on us today, but that's okay because you were here to fill his shoes, and then some. Packy, that's right, and then some.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I just love it because it's something I can look forward to in terms of like, oh, hey, this is a scheduled thing that happens, and it's just a good chance to like talk to friends and stuff. And I feel like that's where like Among Us shined as well. Like at least with the people I played with, it was the Friday, right? Like it was in the middle of the pandemic, and so like you could look forward to Friday night rolls along, and you can play some Amugu with people. And so that was kind of nice. I feel like it really like benefited in popularity because of the pandemic. And obviously it's nice anyways because like all of my older friends, right? Like I don't live near any of my older friends that I normally play games with. And so, like arguably we could still do the same thing. But, I love that, like, which is like WoW Raid Nights is kind of the same way. I kind of like WoW Raid Nights because I know it's like, it's this time, it's this day of the week, this time. And so like, it's something to look forward to in terms of like interacting with other people and playing games or in this case, talking about games with friends. And so I really like it. But the reason I ask is because apparently, I'm guessing neither of you have heard of it or played it, but this game called Evil just came to Game Pass.
Yeah, I saw it's on Steam.
And so I'm interested to play it. It looks just like, Among Us, Salem Witch Trials, any, standard social deception game. And, if it's on Game Pass, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, I'll never check that out.
When you guys play, did you all ever play online with random people, or did you always play with a group of people?
Sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah. Sometimes we would let them fill in.
See, I think I might try that with Evil because it says like I think 2 to 12 people or whatever, and like I'm sure obviously it's like probably 8 to 12 is where it shines, and like we were talking about actually, I think actually the last time I had a big group gaming night of like more than 6 people was Among Us.
Really?
It was Among Us during the pandemic, actually. Yeah, that was definitely like, with friends. It was definitely Among Us in Discord during the pandemic. That was it. And I know I won't be able to recreate that with Evil, so I'm probably gonna try to just play with randos.
It's like it's always hard to like because like sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. It's like when Among Us came out, it also kind of kicked off this wave of like social deception games, like you said. And it was funny
Fortnite copied it, right? Which is hilarious.
Yeah. That Fortnite had it, and then James and I played this game called Unfortunate Spacemen.
Yeah.
Which was basically the same concept as Among Us, just 3D, like first-person shooter. And it was that kind of thing where it was like it didn't have near the mass appeal, so we couldn't quite get enough friends to really fill it out. So when we played that, it was like James and I, and then just a bunch of random people.
That
And it was like,
one,
in a way, that was fun too.
that one also, like, so Among Us is like relatively simple in mechanics, right? I mean, obviously because of this, like the visual style, it's very simple, but just like mechanically, it's very simple too. Unfortunate Spaceman or Spaceman was like, we didn't figure it. We played like maybe 2 or 3 matches and we could not figure it out because there was so much complexity, but everybody we were playing with seemed to know what they were doing. And so we were just like, what is going on? We have no idea what's happening.
Well, I
Yeah,
find that
and it's
interesting.
like,
You said that too. Go ahead, Jacob.
no, I was just gonna say, I think the chaos of situations like that
It's
is
so
fun
fun.
sometimes
It's
too. Like
so
some of my more
entertaining.
memorable experiences is just like being dropped into something like that where it's, a social game, but I have no idea what the hell's happening, and it's just like,
Well,
I don't
it's
know,
fun when
that's fun too.
everyone's learning at the same time too, right? Like when no one knows
Yeah,
what the fuck they're doing, right? Like that's always really fun. Um, but James, I think that point you made though of like Among Us is really simple is a really good point. And like, talking about like we were talking about free to play games earlier, and like Among Us obviously like it was free on phones. And
Yeah.
so the reason I was able to play Among Us with 6 or 8 friends or whatever is because A, it was free to play, and B, it was simple. And so
Yeah,
people who
definitely.
didn't traditionally play games with us, they would hop in and then they would play Among Us with
Hmm.
us. And so it was a excellent like, I guess a casual game that like, kind of like was very opening, very inviting, like very accessible. That's the word. Very accessible and easy to
Yeah.
pick up.
No,
Although Susie
it's
would
great.
disagree with me because she was like, "I hate lying," and so it's not accessible if you hate lying, right? But like,
No,
other than that, it is.
it makes you think of like the Jackbox party games where like, yeah, you have to
I was
buy
gonna.
in for
Ooh, I
like
was gonna
one
say that. I was gonna
person,
say that.
right? But beyond that, everybody has a phone, despite what, Blizzard tried to find out with that stuff.
don't you have phones?
But
They
like
were
everybody
right.
has a
They were right.
phone
Everyone has a phone.
and it's super easy to pick up and it's fun, in its own. Like I remember me and Jacob when we lived together at least one of the times. I think it was maybe at the Maxwell house, maybe at the other
Yeah,
one. We played it a couple
yeah,
times. It was the Maxwell one because we were making Mason memes. But yeah,
right.
you have to buy in a little bit more than something like the free to play like Among Us, but it's one
It's
person,
one
one
person,
console,
exactly
basically like one
right.
license you
Yeah,
have to get, and then
and
beyond
you don't
that,
even need controllers. Yeah,
yeah,
you
you
don't
don't.
even need
It's literally
controllers.
phones, and you don't even necessarily have to be in like the same space because you just put in like the room code, I think, and like that'll, you can be like doing whatever.
We have
Um,
definitely tried. We've done internet Jackbox nights.
yeah,
They work. They don't work. They
as
don't work
well.
as well as in person,
We
obviously,
only ever did it
right?
like in
Like
person, and I think that's part of it too. Obviously, is that it's meant to be a party game, so like being in person helps with like just being able to laugh about the stupid shit you make. But
Right.
I
still,
mean, I've played. I going into what you were talking about of just like it being casual and accessible and anybody can play. Like I played that shit with my parents,
yeah.
right? Like,
Hmm.
and then not only that, here's actually what's even crazier, right? I played it with my parents and my family, and then my parents had such a good time playing it that I had made they have an Xbox at home, and I actually got it for them as just kind of like back in the day when Microsoft was really doing the all-in-one media
Yeah, the
console, right? Like
media.
it's
Yep.
well, I mean, it's because it's just like a crappy 1S, right? But
Hmm.
like it was if you wanted a 4K Blu-ray player, um, the 1S
Well,
was one of the
as I say,
cheapest
it's like
4K
the
Blu-ray
PlayStation
players you could
3. That's
buy.
why it was successful because it was a cheap Blu-ray
Yeah,
player
Or yeah,
yeah,
even like the PS2 to take it back further, like
for
that was like the
DVDs.
cheapest DVD player. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And so, like there was one Christmas I got my parents an Xbox One S because I was like, okay, you're gonna route your TV through here. So if you're watching TV, you're gonna be watching it here. If you're watching Netflix, you're gonna be watching it here. If you're watching a DVD, you're gonna be watching, like it was one input, right? Which was Microsoft's pitch. And so like honestly, like that's one of the reasons I got it from my parents. Anyways, that's why my parents have a 1S at their house. But so, one point was over there, playing Jackbox, all this stuff, yada yada yada. I set it as my home Xbox, and they actually uh, they played Jackbox Party Pack with just like their old people friends. Right? Like, they would just have old people friends over and play Jackbox Party Pack, and I just thought that was awesome. And like that's
Yeah, that's
probably
awesome.
the only time they took advantage of it being my home Xbox. I eventually took it back and I'm loaning out a 1X to some friends here. And so I took it back for that so they can play those games. But like I feel like I love that casual, accessible thing that like people who don't traditionally play games can still pick up and enjoy and have a good time. And that's
for sure.
really awesome.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, it's been about an hour and a half. Jacob,
We covered a lot.
I really appreciate you. We did. And we could continue going, but I am already backed up on editing, and so I don't want to be
Right.
backed up on editing more. But it was very nice for you to pop in, Jacob, and I'd love for you to return if you would like to return. And
yeah,
it was
love
fun.
to. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, this is great. It's good talking to you, Greg, and like good to get on and just like have nice conversations about stuff, like you said. And anytime you're looking for someone to be on the cast, just hit me up. I'm always around. So.
Hell yeah. No, I'm totally about it.
Hell yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
See you, everyone.